if Loki did what he did to Harald in the last chapter of One Piece, where he devastated Harald, someone who was talking about his own strength being greater because he had the immortality factor, and knowing that Harald could fight on par with Rox D. Zebek into a fight that had no clear conclusion. What does that say about Loki against some of the strongest people in One Piece history? And what does that say about the guys currently that can either match or are stronger than Loki in real time? The power scaling of One Piece has kind of taken a weird turn. There's been a glitch in the matrix because Loki is demonstrating strength that is off the charts. And honest to God, for the first time in a long time, putting the doubt of the old guard being just that much stronger than the new guard, because the new guard are now directly interacting with the old guard via Loki, and Loki is a demon who displayed strength clearly better than Harald, even though Harald was going through his situation where Emi was mind controlling him, though not to that extent to where you could argue that his powers were waning per se. In fact, far from. They were bolstered. There's a lot to discuss because I like power scaling a lot. And Loki doing what he did, I think, does solidify a lot of what I've been saying for so many years. The current generation top tiers are not that far off at all from the old guard top tiers. And when you see God Valley and what happened in God Valley, and compare that to what you've seen in Wano Country, what you've seen Kaido do, and Big Mom do, and Luffy do, and Law do, and so on and so forth, some of the things that they were doing were undisputably better than what you've seen in God Valley. Keep it a stack. But before we dive into that, head first, let me give a brief word for today's sponsor. 2026, you have new goals, new dreams, new ambitions. But no matter where you go or no matter what your goals are, the idea of online protection and privacy stay the same. It is very important that you make sure that you go about life without any online hassles, and part of your protection plan should absolutely be Surfshark VPN. Surfshark VPN is a service that not only gives you global protection, no matter where you are in the world. You can be traveling to Japan, like I do, or South Korea, or Germany, Switzerland, America, Canada, wherever you're going, it doesn't matter, because you can have Surfshark VPN at your disposal on all your devices, whether it be laptop, whether it be phone, whether it be watch. You can have Surfshark VPN on all your devices at all times to protect you, to make sure that you are always secure. And the security of anti-phishing, anti-malware, antivirus protection that covers all your essential needs online to make sure that no evildoers can ruin your day, ruin your month, and ruin your year, making 2026 an overall better experience for you and everyone that has Surfshark VPN. Especially if you want to travel and you want to get, let's say, discount deals, but let's say in your region, the prices are marked up for whatever reason. With Surfshark VPN's region changing features, you can change your own region and actually get those discounted, those fair prices on your travel. And it also applies to region gated shows too. If shows are region gated on Disney Plus, on Netflix, you can get access to all the shows that you want to watch no matter where you are in the world. So scan this QR code that you see in front of you, or go in the box below and click on the URL, surfshark.com/KOL, and get 4 extra months free off of your purchase of Surfshark VPN. So in chapter 1170, we do see at the end of that chapter, Loki kill his father with a devastating Ragnir shot that would make his ancestors, all the Nordic ancestors across all medias, proud. Not only do we see a massive bolt of lightning jettisoned down from the heavens, which I do believe is the effect of Ragnir itself, but also you see it be amplified by Conqueror's Haki. Conqueror's Haki that shatters Harald's body. And Harald is a tough son of a bitch. Harald, in terms of physique, is one of the toughest guys we've seen in the story. Just the fact he can actually sustain battle against someone like Rox in of itself just proves his worth. But remember this, we've seen in this flashback, Harald jump from the top of the red line, from the top of the Holy Land. He jumped down from there to the surface world with rocks on his shoulder. So someone that can do a Kaido dive, if not even more so, he jumps from the top of the red line and he lives comfortably with rocks in tow. Someone with a god body like that, when he was younger, he was flicking boogers at sharks and killing sharks. His physique is ancient giant off the charts, and he got annihilated, shattered in a single swing of lightning, Ragnir, Conqueror's Haki, and Loki was even transformed. So the attack power of that last swing is devastating. This is some of the strongest you see in the story. If you wanted to say that Harald, in terms of physique, was somewhat akin to Kaido, at least base Kaido, you can argue that's fair. And again, Harald is someone that's competing with rocks in one-on-one fights. But the key thing here for Loki's power isn't the killing of his own father, that instance, but it's beforehand, I believe, where you do have Harald, after killing a few of his own guards, being manipulated by Imu's influence. He looks at Loki. We don't see Loki's image, but he says, "So you ate it, Loki. Then show me that legendary power." And Harald and Loki begin to fight. Harald has an axe and sword in tow, and he's going in. And he does draw blood from Loki when he's in his transformed state. But Loki annihilates Harald with several major attacks, to the point where even the influence of Imu's manipulation was waning on Harald. This is an absurd level of power. Harald wasn't just losing, he was getting mauled. He was getting mauled by Loki. Now, in the middle of that, because of Loki's actions, he could regain his sense of self temporarily. So that's when he allowed himself to be killed by his own son. Harald had no recourse against transformed Loki. Harald, who seemingly was more powerful than even when he fought against rocks to a stalemate. The same Harald that could leap from the top of the red line, and prior to that, clashed with the rocks, and they blew away a 5-kilometer radius around them with their Conqueror's Haki. So I'm going to assume, this is my assumption here, I'm going to assume that when Imu's influence waned off of Harald, that was essentially the key to it all for Loki to win that fight. If that does not happen, so if Imu's influence can actually maintain itself over Harald, then they continue to fight for a long period of time. It's a way more brutal battle, X, Y, Z, and the other. Though because Loki has Conqueror's Haki, there's a good chance here that he could actually knock out Harald, and then maybe for that point in time, Harald dies later on. Who knows? Harald has Conqueror's Haki too. And when Gaban and Shanks were fighting against Harald, that was becoming problematic for them to deal that lasting damage to Harald, because the Conqueror's Hakis were canceling each other out. So in terms of the stamina game, in terms of the battle of attrition game, just by default, these immortals have the edge. However, the fact of the matter is that he was overpowering Harald, and not just any Harald, the strongest version of Harald. Harald does admit that actually in reality it was like he was being controlled completely, and I quote, and here I'm quoting Loki, "But you're being controlled." And then Harald says, "Not exactly. I suspect that my very thoughts are being influenced by someone else. I'm beginning to think of myself as a god." Harald is influenced by Imu's, but not direct mind control. Again, influenced. That would mean that his powers could probably be utilized at max capacity, even though he's being influenced by Imu, which means the whole King Caboodle, the Haki and everything. Does that mean at peak strength, at max power, if you have a fresh Harald and a fresh Loki, is Loki stronger than Harald? I think we would need more evidence to suggest that, because you could argue, for example, here, that even though in terms of physique and in terms of raw attack power and abilities, Loki's superior, things like, let's say, for example, the stamina game, or let's say the intelligence game, given, let's say, Harald's experience in battle and so on and so forth, these things will come more into play. If Harald is of sound mind and body, does he just charge in there blindly against Loki when he's in that transformed state, or does he actually plan it out? Do more range attacks, kind of test the waters, engage, rather than, let's say, dive head first. You know what I'm saying? So these things would matter to determine who is really stronger, who has better combat ability between the two. But if Harald felt like he needed the powers of immortality to be worthy of getting Ragnir and the Devil Power, and yet at the same time, Loki was worthy, and he was the one that got Ragnir's approval to eat that power, not only is it fair to say that Loki is just as strong as pre-immortality Harald, but he may be stronger. Now, of course, there are simulations where you can argue, well, someone like Harald, why would he want that power in the first place when he's a man of peace rather than, let's say, violence, given his mindset and his goals? We can go down those logic trees, but they don't remove Loki being stronger than Harald from the table, which then brings the question, whoa. Even though we don't know what happened exactly between Shanks and Loki, we do know that Shanks does subdue Loki ultimately, and that's why he was chained up to the giant Admiral tree 6 years ago from real time. So we will find out for sure the details of that in the future, and I'm absolutely looking forward to those. If Loki is this good, is Loki stronger than Big Mom or Kaido? I think they're still alive. Is he stronger than, let's say, people like Monkey D. Luffy himself? Is he stronger than the Admirals? Is he stronger than the Kainu? Stronger than Emu and the Elders? These are things you have to wonder, because Loki, in terms of the pecking order, I think changes things, because Loki is a direct line to the power of the old school. And the old school may be just slow and old, where actually in reality, hey, Kaido and Big Mom and Shanks and even Luffy now are stronger than their predecessors. They are stronger than the Prime Whitebeards and the Roxes and the Haralds and the Garps and the Rogers. That is now a question we have to earnestly think about. I remember when we found out that Rox killed an admiral off screen, there were folks that were suggesting that the admiral was not on the same level as the admirals of today. That was a pretty interesting idea. I'm not gonna lie to you, but we have no idea the deets on that. The tea has not been spilled by Oda on that. What if it's the case that it's actually universal? Everyone of that era was not on the same tier as the guys of the current era, or at the bare minimum, the eras are very comparable in strength, because people thought for a very long time that the old guard were just definitively stronger than the new guard. But now there have been signs to prove that's not the case. Number one is an actual direct sign from the One Piece canon material, not the manga, but the Ace Light novel. In the Ace Light novel, they tell you verbatim that it is perceived by the folks of the world in terms of sheer battle power in a one-on-one fight, Kaido is stronger than Whitebeard, and there is nothing in the manga to really counteract that. I would say Whitebeard himself does not want to go to Wano Country to fight against Kaido for the sake of Oden, who was his sworn brother. A, and then B, in terms of sheer feats, Kaido, I think, does beat out old man Whitebeard in feats. But to be fair, that is old man Whitebeard. If that's true, though, in terms of sheer battle power, then Kaido would absolutely be on par, if not even stronger, than the Garps and the Rogers and the Haralds and the Roxes and so on and so forth at their peak powers, right? When we, let's say, look at peak power Rox and peak power Harald, that's happening in this current Elbaf flashback. But for, let's say, guys like Garp or guys like Roger or guys like Sengoku or guys like Whitebeard, their peak powers come later on in the Oden flashback, where in that flashback, we're going to see the true peak powers, or close to peak power Roger, very close to, and an earnest peak power Whitebeard. But even still, when we do see those two guys, those two legends clash in chapter 966, and they're not even touching, even though they're doing that, we have seen also Luffy and Kaido perform something similar in chapter 1011. Even the way the light is drawn on Onigashima is very similar to the light that's drawn on the trees and on the clouds when they do that clash. It's almost the same exact effects that we see from Luffy and Kaido as we do see on Whitebeard and Roger. This, I think, is just more evidence proving that that old guard, that slow and old guard, they're not that far, if right on par, with the new boys of the current era. Kaido and Big Mom, who was his peer, can absolutely compete, I think, with guys like Harald, guys like Rox, guys like Roger, and guys like Garp and Sengoku, the Prime era top tiers. Absolutely. Absolutely. As before too, on paper, that either that Shanks either just as strong or stronger than Gold D Roger. And he is the only person to have what? Hockey comparable to Joy Boy. I assume so does Roger. That's my assumption. Right now, it's not confirmed. All of these statements have now a lot more credibility, because Loki is not just someone that is, let's say, worthy of being in the top 10 in the current era. but potentially of all time. When he did kill his father, over the course of time, you would assume that he's only gotten stronger. Even though he's been chained up and took massive damage from Gunko and Shamrock, that could be a way to nerf him to the point to where he's not outshining everybody else on Elbaf. He could be stronger than Luffy. If Oda feels the need to suppress Loki's power level by injuring him, greatly so, by 2 Holy Knights, and even still, he's going to go up into the Sunrealm area and cause God knows what kind of damage, but be very impactful. This could mean that he's going to be up there with Luffy, and Luffy I have stronger than Mihawk right now, because Luffy's a beast. But Loki could be an even bigger beast than Luffy. Oda, low-key, has been suppressing the real level of low-key because he doesn't want him to go crazy and outshine the MC on Elbaf. So obviously we gotta see more stuff, way more stuff from Loki in the future. I would like to get more insight on the guys of the past and their power levels. Unfortunately, Oda does not show a lot in these flashbacks, which does absolutely suck. God Valley was a prime case here. He could have shown a lot more of what Whitebeard, of what Roger, and what especially Rocks, what they could have done in terms of their power. But that being said, I think it's enough to say at the bare minimum, we need to respect the new boys and the new gen now, because the new gen have a direct line to the old gen, and they are absolutely not that far off at all from the old guard, the slow and old guard. Absolutely not. And again, if Shanks is, if Shanks is who Oda thinks he is, oh yeah, he's off the charts. But that being said, y'all know what I think about Shanks, but I do not know what you guys think about this subject. So let me know in the comment section down below. If you enjoy your boys' video content, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and click on that bell to join the notification squad. I'm gonna catch you guys and gals on the flip side.